Millionaire hires fake wife for 72 hours and faces shocking twist that changes everything. James Carter sat rigid in his sleek glass office, high above the roar and rush of New York City. Outside, early autumn's golden leaves tumbled wildly against steel skyscrapers, swirling like restless spirits. But inside, everything was painfully still. The kind of still where you'd swear you could hear the tick of his watch echo off the sterile walls. James, a titan of business, with a mind as sharp as a razor's edge, was battling something no money or power could solve: loneliness. And the clock was running out. In just 3 days, the Carter family gala would unfold, an immaculate affair dripping with velvet, diamonds, and cutthroat glances. But there was a catch. James needed a partner. Not just any +1, but someone who could hold her own under the brutal spotlight of high society. So, desperate, he did something nobody in his world would admit. He decided to hire a fake wife, not just for a night, but for exactly 72 hours. The plan was simple: appear as the perfect couple, and then disappear back into the quiet shadows he preferred. Enter Emma. She was nothing like the polished, shiny women in his world. An actress struggling in the city that never sleeps. Emma had a flicker of fire in her eyes beneath a worn coat. She was caught between auditions and unpaid bills, a ghost navigating the crowded streets with just enough hope to keep going. When James offered her the deal, the shock on her face was visible, even through the dim lighting of the dingy cafe where they met. 72 hours, no strings. Just play the part. The first meeting was electric. Scrappy laughter clashed with nerves. But under it all, something raw, something dangerously real. As Emma practiced her smiles and James tried on his ease, the city around them buzzed with secrets hidden in shadows. Then came the twist. On their second day, after a bitter subway ride, weaponized by rush-hour bodies and grinds, James found it, slipped deep inside Emma's purse when she wasn't looking. A folded, faded note, no signature. Just a cryptic message scribbled in hurried handwriting. They're watching. Not everything is as it seems. His heart hammered. Was this a joke? A trap? The walls of control he'd built around his life cracked wide open, leaving him trembling, uncertain. Was Emma just an actress, or something far more complicated and dangerous? The golden leaves twirled outside again, mocking him with their bleak beauty, as James faced a choice he hadn't prepared for: tear down the mask or keep playing the part until the final curtain. The family gala loomed closer, but now nothing was certain. ... What secrets did Emma carry? And what price would he pay for pretending? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just quickly check that red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're at it, leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. James stared at the note again, fingers trembling as he folded it back into her purse. His chest tightened. The city noise buzzed past the cafe window, distant and dull compared to the storm swirling inside him. Who was Emma, really? And who was watching? The rest of the day passed in a blur of rehearsed smiles and whispered conversations. Emma played the role with sharp precision, but James caught the flickers, the quick glances over shoulders, the sudden stiffening of her posture. That night, restless and unable to shake the note from his mind, James invited Emma to his apartment. They sat across from each other, the tension thick enough to cut. "Tell me the truth," James said, voice low. "Who sent this, and why?" Emma's laugh was sudden, bitter. "You really want to know?" Her eyes darkened. Then, like a switch, she swung her bag onto the floor and pulled out a worn ID. "I didn't tell you everything. My real name isn't Emma." James froze. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, the sharp ringing of his phone shattered the silence. He glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Curious, he answered. "James Carter." A cold voice breathed on the line. "You don't know what you're playing with." A shudder went through him. "Who is this?" "Look closer. Your fake wife? She isn't who she pretends to be." The line clicked dead. James's grip on the phone tightened. He looked at Emma. "What did you get yourself into?" She bit her lip but didn't speak. Hours later, the twist hit like a freight train. The family gala, velvet curtains, glittering chandeliers, the murmur of voices polished with ice. James and Emma entered, linked arms, faces flawless masks. But the crowd hardly noticed the charade before it exploded. Midway through the event, a sudden commotion broke out near the entrance. A man, disheveled, wild-eyed, pushed through security shouting a name. "Emma, you lied! You destroyed everything!" The room froze. James's heart thudded so loud it drowned out the gasps. Emma's face drained. She didn't move. The man stormed toward them, holding a thin folder. With shaking hands, he flipped it open and slapped it onto the nearest table. Photographs spilled across polished wood. Emma, really Emma, but in places James never imagined. Insider meetings with shadowy figures, secret exchanges behind closed doors. Fear clawed up James's throat. Emma's past wasn't just hidden. It was dangerous, and it was right in front of him. "Who is he?" James demanded, voice cracking. Emma's eyes locked with James's, and for the first time, the mask dropped. "I never wanted you to find out this way." Whispers slithered around the room. Someone gasped, "She's a spy." Another voice sneered, "A con, using Carter's money to buy her lies." James's world cracked open. The woman who'd made his breath catch, who'd sparked something real in those brief hours, was a mystery wrapped in betrayal, carrying secrets that could ruin everything. The man's voice was cold, tearing through the stunned silence. Emma's not just playing house, James. She works for his enemies. And I'm here to make sure you know. James felt the pulse in his head pound like a war drum. Emma's hand trembled beside his. His mind screamed for answers, but only one question burned through the chaos. Who was the real enemy? And how deep did this lie go? The golden leaves outside the grand windows still twirled, indifferent, as James stared into a future suddenly darker than any night he'd known. The mask was off. The real game had just begun. James froze, his chest tightening so sharply it felt like glass cutting through. Emma's gaze held his, raw and unguarded for the first time, then spun away, shattered. The murmurs in the grand hall surged louder, a wave crashing over him. Faces blurred. The stranger's words echoed. She works for his enemies. But before James could gather himself, the chandelier overhead groaned, a low cracking sound slicing through the tension. Everyone's eyes snapped upward. Then, without warning, the massive crystal fixture detached from its mount. Time warped. The chandelier plummeted. Screams tore through the crowd. James's heart exploded in his chest as the glittering death surged down. He lunged forward, grabbing Emma and smashing them both to the floor, just as the crystals shattered around them, slashing air and tearing through expensive gowns and suits. Dust thickened the air. Sharp fragments glittered on the marble. Silence, a heavy, trembling silence, followed. Emma coughed violently, clutching her arm, blood blossoming red on the pristine white sleeve. James cradled her, voice cracking. "Are you okay? Talk to me." Her eyes locked with his, fierce despite the pain. "James, you don't know everything." Behind them, chaos erupted. People scrambled, some shrieking, others frozen. Security swarmed the scene, panic blooming wild. But then, just as James caught his breath, a chilling discovery flipped the night on its head. From beneath the fallen rubble and Emma's grasp fell a small black envelope. It was old, edges worn, sealed with blood-red wax. James's hands shook violently as he tore it open. Inside, a single photo spilled out. It was him. From years ago. Not the James Carter everyone admired, but a different James. Less polished, darker eyes, standing beside a man no one should ever name, Victor Kane. A man fought long dead, a shadow that haunted whispered boardroom talks and government files. A man who vanished after a scandal so explosive it broke families and governments. But there he was, James, smiling casually beside Kane, hands clasped firm, partners in a secret darker than any headline. Gasps swirled around the room as the photo caught the dull light. James stared, numb. His own past, hidden not just from the world, But from himself? Emma's voice trembled beside him. You were never the hero, James. You've been playing the part as long as I have. His mind screamed. The betrayal, the lies, not just hers, but his own life unraveling. The fake wife, the fake story, the real secrets buried so deep that even he forgot. The crowd's eyes burned into him, judgment heavy and sharp. One whispered, "Is Carter the real enemy?" Another sneered. All this time, what else did he hide? James closed his eyes. The gala, the note, Emma, the spy, none of it fit the truth. The truth was darker, more tangled. Emma's hand found his in the wreckage, a brief, fragile anchor in the storm. But beyond the pain, beyond the fear, one question screamed louder than all. Who was James Carter really? And what price would the world pay when this secret broke free? The golden leaves swirled outside, indifferent, mocking, as the mask shattered. And somewhere deep inside, the real game picked up its cruel. James's hands trembled as he slowly folded the photo back into the envelope. His breath hitched. The room around him seemed to tilt, voices turning into distant echoes, like a river pulling him under. Emma's fingers squeezed his, small but steady, an anchor he didn't know he needed. And then it hit. The ballroom doors slammed open with a violent crash that slammed against the stunned silence. All eyes snapped to the entrance. There stood a figure bathed in cold light. Tall, sharp, impossibly calm despite the chaos. Someone no one expected. A woman. Her eyes burned like ice. Her voice sliced through the room like a knife. Stop everything. The crowd stilled, caught between fear and curiosity, as she stepped forward with slow, sure steps. James's heart froze. "Claire," Emma whispered, her voice barely a breath, her face paling. Claire, James's sister, the one he buried beneath years of lies, the sister who vanished without a trace a decade ago. Officially dead, except here she was, alive. The room buzzed with disbelief. Murmurs swelled to whispers, whispered confusion swirling thick. James's chest tightened, the air gone thin. "How can you be here? We thought you... dead?" Claire's eyes snapped fire at him. "You wanted me gone, James. You wanted the past buried fast. But secrets don't vanish." Her gaze swung to Emma, sharp now. "And neither does the debt you owe." Emma's face twisted. "Debt? What are you talking about?" Claire's laugh was cold, empty. "You think this was just a game? A fake wife? A staged gala? No, James. It's much deeper. You wanted a clean image? I'm here to make sure the real one comes out." James's head spun. Claire was the ghost he chased, but never caught. The one he thought was wiped away by time. Claire stepped closer, voice dropping fierce and low. You're tied to Victor Kane. Yes, but not as a partner. You were the cause of my disappearance. And now I'm back for the reckoning. Before James could speak, Emma's eyes flared. Wait, you're blaming him? What about you? Where were you all these years? Claire's smile didn't reach her eyes. You wouldn't understand. Then, epic silence. And then, the bombshell. Claire's fingers slipped into her coat, pulling out a small device. A soft beep filled the air. Gasps sliced through the crowd. Everyone, Claire said, voice steady and sharp. This is a transmitter. Everything in this room is being recorded. Every whispered secret, every lie. Suddenly behind her, screens flickered to life along the walls, projecting live feeds. Cameras James didn't know existed, capturing every glance, every word on the screens. The guests froze in moments of raw truth. Bribes accepted, hidden alliances, hostile whispers. The room turned into a cage of exposed sins. The chandelier rubble, the envelopes, the spy accusations. They were just the surface. Claire's reveal destroyed the entire illusion. James's carefully crafted empire was crumbling in real time. His chest felt like it might crush him. Emma's hand shook in his, but her eyes never left Claire. You planned this. All of it. Claire's lips twitched with bitter satisfaction. You don't remember me, James, but I remember everything. The lies, the betrayal, the family you destroyed to protect your twisted empire. James's world shattered again, colder than before. Behind the stunned crowd, security officers moved in hesitantly, unsure who to trust. Whispers turned to accusations. Is she insane? Family vendetta. Is this why Emma was here? James looked at Emma, then back at Claire. His mind screamed. If Claire was alive, all the stories, all the truths he held were built on lies. And maybe Emma wasn't the only one hiding secrets. The city outside, with its indifferent golden leaves, seemed to watch and wait. The mask had shattered long ago, but now the real nightmare had begun. And James still didn't know the half of it. James stood frozen, the weight of Claire's words crashing down like thunder. The crowd's outrage washed over him in waves. Accusations sharp as knives, whispers thick as smoke. Emma's grip tightened on his hand, her eyes dark with something he couldn't name. The air was electric, alive with tension. Then, without any warning, the ballroom lights cut out. Darkness swallowed the room. A shudder rolled through the guests. Murmurs scrambled into panicked murmurs. Footsteps pounding, heels clicking against marble floors. James's breath hitched. A sick feeling twisted in his gut, sharper than fear. Somewhere, heels clicked fast, closer and closer. Suddenly, the emergency lights flickered on, casting eerie red glows across faces frozen in shock. But then, right in front of James and Emma, the giant screens. Those same ones Claire had just activated, glitched violently. Images blurred, voices distorted. And in a heartbeat, the screens flashed a new face. James's heart slammed into his ribs. It wasn't Claire. It wasn't Emma. It was him. Not the polished titan standing there. A different James. Battered, desperate, cold eyes burning into the lens. The footage cracked like static in the feed, but showed what looked like a younger James, struggling against shadowy men, face bruised and bleeding. And then, the worst hit. The video cut to a hidden room. A voice, rough and low, filled the room's speakers. "James Carter, you never escaped." The crowd stiffened. Confused glances bounced like a ripple through the room, but James's eyes fixed on the screen like a curse had been thrown. Another clip played, this time showing James speaking quietly to a man in a dark suit, their faces tense. "Victor Kane's ghost still haunts you," the man said. "We've kept you alive, controlled you. Every move, every smile, just part of the act." But now a third face appeared, emerging from the shadows. A face James only recognized in nightmares. It was himself, only colder, sharper, untouchable. His eyes cut through the room, empty yet burning. The voice on the speakers dropped to a whisper, deadly and close. "There are two of you, James. One trapped in lies, the other the real puppet master." Gasping, people took a step back, murmurs exploding like wildfire. Emma's eyes widened. What does this mean? James's chest seized tight. His knees felt weak. Was he the victim? Or the villain? Or something worse? Claire snarled, stepping forward, fury spilling from her every word. "You're a ghost, James. The one they want you to see. The other, the Carter who's been pulling strings from the shadows." 1,000 thoughts slammed through his mind, breaking down the walls he'd built. The photo with Victor Kane, the spy accusations, the note in Emma's purse. Were they all a smokescreen? James glanced at Emma, her face pale, trembling, and then back at Claire. The crowd's roar faded into a low hum, the chaos around him swallowed by the storm inside. And then a voice whispered, cruel and cold, brushing his ear as if from nowhere. "You don't know who you really are, but soon everyone will." James's eyes snapped open. The mask shattered again, but this time the cracks revealed something terrifying. There was no going back. Who was the real James Carter? And which one was still alive? The golden leaves outside spun madly in the wind like desperate flames. Inside, James's world tilted. Darker, deeper, never quite what it seemed. The game had just split in two, and the nightmare was only beginning. James's breath hitched. His heart hammered so loud he thought it might burst through his ribs. The mask shattered again, but this time the cracks weren't just fractures in a facade. They were fractures in reality itself. The grand ballroom felt like it was spinning. The golden leaves outside, now a mad hurricane tearing through his mind. He squeezed Emma's hand tight. Her eyes flicked to Claire, then back to him. Fear, mixed with fierce determination, glinting in the dim light. And then, the impossible happened. A sudden, sharp crack ripped through the silence. A shot. The crowd gasped, frozen. Then chaos erupted, like a flash flood breaking a dam. James whipped his head toward the sound. Claire collapsed, a thin line of blood blossoming across her chest. Her eyes found James's, wide with shock, words caught in her throat. The room turned to bedlam. Security scrambled toward the fallen woman. Guests shrieked, and the chandelier's fractured light fractured too, casting weird shadows that danced like ghosts on the marble floor. James dropped to his knees beside Claire, his hands trembling violently as he pressed against the wound. Blood soaked the crisp white fabric, hot, sticky, and terrifyingly real. "Claire, no," he whispered, voice breaking, panic crashing over him like waves. "Stay with me. Please, just hold on." Emma crouched beside them, her face pale but steady, her fingers brushing against Claire's hair. "Someone help!" she shouted, voice cracked, but no one moved fast enough. The crowd was frozen, trapped between fear and confusion, eyes darting everywhere, searching for the shooter. James's mind screamed for answers, but found only echoes. Then Claire's eyes blazed open once more. They locked on James's with sharp clarity, and she breathed, barely a whisper. "Look, behind you." James froze. All sounds fell away, but a high-pitched ringing in his ears. Slowly he turned. The crowd's murmurs stiffened into sharp gasps. Standing there, in the wavering emergency lights, was a man James never expected to see here. Victor Kane. Not dead, not vanished, alive and very much real. Victor's icy gaze swept the room. Then it landed on James, calculating, cold, like a predator surveying its prey. James's chest tightened so much it felt like crushing stone. The past he thought buried alive was standing right there, a living nightmare. Victor smiled, a slow, dreadful curve of lips that promised ruin. "Did you really think the game was over, James?" Victor's voice sliced the chaos like a knife. The room seemed to shrink, the air thickening with dread. James's mind shattered further. The spy accusations, Claire's return, the duplicate James on screen. It was all a lie, layered beneath a darker, uglier truth. Victor stepped closer, eyes locked on the blood-soaked Claire. "Your sister was never the enemy," he said coldly. "She was the shield and the key." Claire coughed, struggling but alive. "You promised." "I'd be safe," she gasped. Victor's smile faltered, darkening, as if shadows stretched behind him. Promises made in darkness always come with a price. Emma stood, shaking but steady. "Why? Why did you come back?" Victor's gaze flicked to her, then back to James, voice dropping to a venomous whisper. Because the real James Carter, the puppet master, has played his hand for too long. James staggered back, his knees nearly buckled. The world turned inside out. Hands were no longer friends to him. They shook like leaves in a storm. And then, a voice, soft, unsteady, from the crowd. Wait! Everyone's heads turned toward the source. A woman stepped forward, pale under the harsh red lights. Her eyes wide, her expression raw. Emma's eyes narrowed. You, she said, voice trembling but fierce, are not who you say you are. Victor froze. Claire's breath hitched. James stared, baffled. The woman's next words dropped like a bomb. I'm your daughter. Silence swallowed the room. Not just any daughter. The daughter James never knew he had. And the daughter Victor Kane swore he'd destroyed. James's head spun, his chest crushing in agony and disbelief. This wasn't just a family gone wrong. This was a war waged in blood and lies. His past, his present, his future, all violently shattered. And now, everything had changed. The golden leaves outside howled in the wind like a warning. James's world had exploded, but the real question beat sharp and fierce. Who was this woman claiming to be his daughter, and which side of the storm was she on? The game wasn't just split in two. It had shattered into 1,000 pieces. None of them the truth he thought he knew. James's breath caught in his throat. The room froze. Everyone's eyes locked on the woman standing tall under the harsh red light. She claimed she was his daughter. His blood ran cold, his heart pounding so loud it threatened to burst free. But before James could find the words, before his mind could even process the weight of that claim, the woman took a slow step forward. Her gaze didn't waver. Not from him, not from the sea of stunned faces. Emma's hand tightened in his, a faint tremor under his own rising panic. And then the air shifted. A sudden, sharp pop cracked through the room. Lights flickered violently, casting long, twitching shadows across marble and velvet. A cold, electric buzz filled the air. Phones beeped. Screams crawled up throats. Everyone looked down. On the pristine marble floor, a thin wire snaked its way, blending almost perfectly with the dark veins in the stone. James's eyes widened. Bomb? The word escaped before he could stop it. Chaos erupted. Security shouted, shoving guests toward the exits. People stumbled, tripping over heels and suits, their faces pale with terror. Emma dragged James's arm. We need to get out now. James's chest tightened dangerously. The fake wife was no longer there. The daughter was no longer human. She was an enemy. The game was far from over. The bomb timer blinked on a tiny screen attached to the wire. 015. 15 seconds. James's mind screamed. He looked at the woman, his daughter. and saw something else behind her eyes. Not fear, not love, cold calculation. A voice cracked through the panic, shaky, but burning with raw urgency. "Step back! Move!" But the crowd was frozen, paralyzed by shock and disbelief. Emma's voice, however, sliced through. "James, listen. This was never about revenge or family. It's a setup. The gala, the lies, your sister, the spy. All distractions." James shook his head, trying to place the pieces. But then the woman, his supposed daughter, raised a small device. "Don't move," she said softly, deadly calm. "And James, it's time you learn the truth." Suddenly, the grand entrance doors burst open again, this time with brutal force. Two men stormed in, faces masked, but eyes burning with something worse than hate. One held a gun. James dove, pulling Emma down, just as the gunshot tore through the room. Glass shattered. People screamed. Bodies hit the floor. The daughter smiled at James, wide, cold, merciless. "My real name," she leaned close to his ear, "is not the one you think." His breath hitched, heart pounding as terror wrapped ice around his spine, because in her other hand, hidden beneath her coat, was a small, familiar badge, the emblem of the FBI. James froze. The entire night, every whisper, every secret, every bite of betrayal had been a sting, a trap laid by the one person James never expected to see again. The true enemy wasn't Victor Kane, not Claire, not even Emma. It was someone in his own shadow. And now, James's whole life was about to vanish in a flash. The bomb timer blinked again. 8 seconds. The gunman advanced. Seconds shattered like glass. And as James stared into his daughter's unyielding eyes, one terrible question burned. Who had been playing him all along? And what nightmare was still waiting in the dark? James's breath caught. The bomb timer blinked. 08. The gunman's shadow stretched toward him. Time shattered. Suddenly, the woman claiming to be his daughter stepped forward, her eyes blazing with cold fire. She pressed a button on the small device in her hand. The wire vanished in a flash, leaving only a whisper of smoke curling from the floor. Silence. Confused gasps. James barely had time to blink before the gunman lowered his weapon. "Enough," the woman said sharply, voice slicing through the room like ice. The crowd didn't move. No one understood what just happened. James stared at her, chest pounding. "What the?" Before she answered, a harsh voice boomed from somewhere behind him. "Drop it!" The room spun as a sharp blast cracked through the air. James slammed to the ground, pain ripping through his ribs. He twisted, shielding Emma, as shattered glass rained down. But it wasn't the gunshot that stole his breath. It was the scream. Quiet at first, then rising, piercing. James turned his head just in time to see Claire crumple. But it wasn't blood this time. A dark liquid poured from her mouth, thick, black, crawling down her chin like ink spilled from a broken pen. Her eyes widened, wild, uncomprehending. "I'm not Claire," she gasped, voice strangled, broken. James froze, heart slamming hard against his chest. "What are you talking about?" Emma shouted, frantic. Claire, or whoever she was, gestured weakly, the liquid spreading fast beneath her pale skin. "You don't know the real me." Then her whole body convulsed violently. Suddenly, Claire's face twisted grotesquely, skin melting away like wet paper to reveal a tangled mass of wires, cold metal gleaming beneath the tear. Gasps exploded around the room. A woman collapsed, clutching her mouth. James's mind shattered, smashing through everything he thought he knew. Claire wasn't human. She couldn't be. Not real. "Oh God," James whispered, voice barely a breath. The sister wasn't his sister. She was a machine, a perfect mask, hiding something mechanical, something designed to deceive. The daughter, the woman with the badge, who'd just defused the bomb, stepped back, her eyes sharp, guarded. "Yeah," she said quietly, voice barely above the chaos. "That's the truth." James looked at her, trembling. What is she?" "An implant," the woman said carefully. "Programmed to get close to you, to bring down Kane's empire from inside." "But Claire disappeared 10 years ago," James whispered, pain and rage twisting his gut. "Why the hell would anyone build a robot?" "Because," the woman answered grimly, "the real player is long gone. What you saw tonight, a trap, a message, and a warning." James's head throbbed. The room spun. Emma gripped his arm tightly. "James, listen, none of it's real. Not the family, not the spies, not the history." He looked at Emma's face, her fake smiles, the way her eyes flickered with fear. "Then who are you?" Her jaw clenched. "I'm what was left after they broke us all." Before James could answer, the mechanical Claire reached out, voice distorted, cold. "James, you've been puppets in a game far bigger than you know. And I'm just the beginning." The lights flickered again, screens around the room igniting in chaotic patterns. Images flashed faster than the eye could grasp. Faces, dates, places, none matching anything James remembered. His world was built on lies. Mirrors inside mirrors. And now the mask wasn't just off. It was a shattered puzzle. James swallowed hard, his breath short, his mind racing. The room was no longer a ballroom. It was a battlefield. And he didn't know who or what to trust. The daughter looked at him through unblinking eyes. "Ready to see the real war?" she whispered. James barely nodded, because suddenly nothing was familiar anymore. Not his past, not his family, not even himself. The real enemy? It was no longer a person. It was the nightmare they'd crafted. The question now burned hotter. Was James Carter even human at all? James's breath hitched. His heart hammered so loud he thought it might burst through his ribs. The mask shattered again, but this time The cracks weren't just fractures in a facade. They were fractures in reality itself. The grand ballroom seemed to spin, golden leaves outside, now whipping in a wild storm, echoing the chaos inside his mind. He gripped Emma's hand tight. Her eyes darted to Claire, then back to him, fear battling fierce resolve shining in their depths. And then, the impossible. A sharp click cut through the silence. All eyes snapped toward the stage. A man stepped into the dim light, tall, quiet, with a calm that sent shivers crawling down James's spine. James didn't recognize him, but the room hushed as the man held up a small tablet. On the screen, one image spread like poison. A live feed, an empty chair, a dimly lit room. Then, words bloomed on the screen, cold and clinical. Patient 17, James Carter. The crowd gasped, confused murmurs twisting into outraged whispers. James's throat tightened. What was this? Some kind of sick joke? The man's voice cut through the murmur, quiet but deadly. James, or rather, the version of you in this room, has to know the truth. You aren't who you think you are. James staggered, clutching his chest, breath shallow. Before he could speak, the screen flickered and then exploded in a rush of footage. Machines, tubes, bright hospital lamps. A younger version of James, eyes closed, strapped down to a chair. Then, a lab filled with monitors, wires snaking like snakes. One by one, names and codes flashed. Project Eden, Replica Unit, JC-17. Subject awake. James choked, his knees buckling as the walls closed in. The man's voice swallowed the room again. You are a copy, an experiment. The real James Carter died years ago. Gasps exploded. Guests shook their heads, some backing away. Emma's grip faltered. No, that can't be! James fell to his knees, sweat slicking his skin, mind screaming in betrayal. You're a clone? The tablet flickered again, showing a shadowed figure standing over the real James Carter. A man hooked to machines, eyes lifeless, face pale like death. The man spoke again, voice low, relentless. Your entire life, family, memories, synthetic, designed to replace a man who made deals too dark to survive. James's hands shook, the ground beneath him dissolving. The room spun. The daughter stepped forward, expression unreadable. You, she said coldly, are the product of lies and science, the perfect mask. Emma's eyes filled with tears, disbelief and grief interlacing. James's mind fractured, splintering in every direction. If he wasn't really James Carter, then who was he? And what was the nightmare before him now? The lights flickered. The golden leaves outside slammed against the windows like desperate warnings. Voices rose in chaos. Accusations flew. You're not the man we knew. Fake, a fraud. But most terrifying of all was the silence in James's own chest. The emptiness where identity used to live. The man with the tablet smiled thinly. Who pulled the strings? Who's the real enemy? You or the ones who created you? James's eyes locked with Emma's. Her hand trembled. I don't know anymore, he whispered. A cold shiver swept the room. Then, the last line, like a knife through the dark. Welcome to your real awakening, James. The question that crushed all before it. If the man standing there was a copy, then who was James Carter? And who had been playing him all along? James stared at the flickering screen, heart hammering like a drum in a storm. The room felt colder, heavier, like the walls themselves were closing in. He wasn't just a copy, not just a mask. He was something else entirely. A ghost trapped between two worlds, fighting to find himself in the wreckage. Emma's hand shook in his, a lifeline in the chaos. Their eyes met, raw, desperate, and for a moment, everything slowed. His chest ached with a painful truth. Whatever he wasn't alone. Behind them, the crowd buzzed with panic and disbelief. Voices rose, harsh and broken. Fake, someone spat. Another whispered. Who does he even belong to? James pushed himself up, knees trembling. The past shattered beneath him. Victor Kane's shadow, Claire's betrayal, the web of lies. It all crashed into one impossible mountain to climb. But right now, he had one choice. He looked at Emma, fierce and fragile. We end this. Together. No one moved as the man with the tablet sighed, stepping forward. You have to choose, James. Fight the ghosts inside you, or disappear entirely. His body felt heavy, but his heart pulled him forward. With a deep breath, he ripped the tablet from the man's hand and smashed it on the marble floor. Glass scattered. A hush fell. Emma stepped closer, voice low and steady. We face whatever's left, you and me. Suddenly, the screens blinked out. The golden leaves outside spun wildly, as if nature itself held its breath. Chaos lingered, but beneath it, a fragile hope bloomed, a chance to rewrite the story. James didn't know what came next. Was he the hero? The villain? Or something in between? That didn't matter now. What mattered was the fire still burning inside. A shot at truth, at freedom, at redemption. As security moved in, prepared for the fallout, James slicked his hand into Emma's, anchoring himself. Together they vanished into the storm outside, two broken souls chasing an uncertain dawn. But somewhere in the shadows, a new player watched. The game wasn't over, not by a long shot, and the question still hung sharp, cutting through the night like a blade. Who really pulls the strings? And when will the real James Carter finally wake up? Hey, if you're still with me, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss what comes next. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. Flood the comments with your thoughts. What do you think happens next? Who's the real enemy? I want to hear your wildest theories. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who have to see how it ends. Only true fans get how important your support is. This is just the beginning. And I promise, the next chapter will blow your mind. So hit subscribe, smash like, comment crazy, and share this now. We're in this together.